In this episode of Love Leadership, we're going to be talking about the importance of having proper priorities. Welcome back for episode 8 of the Love Leadership podcast. We exist to build up leaders who love to lead and lead to love. My name's Mike O'Connell, and I'm joined by Todd Doxzon.
Let's go, Mike. Let's do this.
Come on, we're back. Can we believe we're 8 episodes in?
8 in. Didn't you just say something about 7? I think a lot of podcasts shut it down after 7.
They do. So we made it.
Come on, dog.
We crossed the line. Come on. My goodness, folks. Celebrate with us, please. Most podcasts only go 7 episodes and then they stop, man. There is something.
Isn't that humanity, though, too, right? Where, we start with a good idea and then the follow-up typically isn't there. So love it, man. And I appreciate your consistency and your faithfulness to keep us rolling, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. We got to start with the end in mind, right? I mean, that's what allows us to keep going. This is a journey. And we're glad to be on the journey with you guys.
That's right.
Hopefully you enjoyed the 7 C's that we covered. I mean, that's a lot of months. That's a 7-month journey that you guys went on with us. Thank you for that. We're gonna kind of switch it up a little bit today, and we're gonna talk about, I think, a topic that is super prevalent. And this is something that, I mean, we're in each season. We're having to sift through this, but we're talking today. We're talking about the importance of priorities. What does that look like? How do we have proper priorities? What drives even setting our priorities? And I think just to set this up, there's a book that's really influenced us, or challenged us, I should say, and it's called Choosing to Cheat by Andy Stanley. Can you talk a little bit about that concept? Yeah,
well, first of all, I think he did change the title to When Work and Family Collide, just to be real, but I actually loved the title.
Right.
And it was a catchy thing because at the end of the day, all of us as leaders of organizations are stretched in a million ways. And basically the whole premise of the book is we have to cheat something, right? Because your work demand is demanding like all these hours and all this, energy and capacity, but then you go home and the same thing is happening. So a lot of times, unfortunately, as leaders, we usually cheat in one way or the other. It's either we don't give it our all at work or we don't give it our all at home. And it's such an awkward tension that goes on all the time with us as leaders. And so, I thank God for Andy Stanley and him writing this. And he really gives, and we just challenge you to read the book, but the basic, he takes Daniel. You remember Daniel, he goes basically to Babylon. He's in a foreign land. And he was really supposed to compromise and eat the king's delicacies. And he's like, you know what, man, I'm not going to do it. And, he's very tactful in his approach, but he said, can you just test me, for 10 days, eating vegetables and water, and then kind of, see what happens. And it's funny because the attendant finally does. 10 days later, he looks better than all the other guys. They were eating the king's meat and the wine and the whole deal. And it was just, his whole thing was, God was honoring his choice not to cheat God, but to cheat the system, and God supernaturally, he filled in the gaps. And the whole idea, I think, is what he's saying is, you know what, you absolutely work your tail off, maximize your stewardship, run your organization, lead well, do all that, but do not cheat at home. Make sure you are leading your family well, you're staying healthy spiritually and definitely relationally at home. And make sure that that's the number one priority. And God just has a way to show up supernaturally at work. And your amazing effort at work, he has the ability to multiply even more. And, you think of like a Chick-fil-A or whatever, like here they are honoring God with shutting down operations completely on a Sunday. Yeah. I mean, that's leaving a lot of business on the table, but they are setting a clear priority and saying, God is our priority. We want to take care of our people, give them a day of rest. God told us to take a Sabbath day. We're going to shut it down. And you look at the sales of those 6 days actually blow away a lot of the fast food restaurants in our culture today by a large part. And to me, that's an example of God honoring proper priorities in life.
Yeah, it's so good. And I think, somebody that's feeling the tensions right now, but there's not enough time. Like, how do I do this all? And there never will be. No. And I would say this, a great leader we follow is Craig Groeschel. He's got an amazing series of podcasts called Cut the Slack. I would just tell you, go watch that. Check that thing out. Because, it's interesting because I think as leaders, we make that excuse all the time. There's not enough time, but the reality is if we start to really take inventory on how we really spend our time, we're going to recognize that there's some slack in that time. There's some things.
Slack in the scroll, baby.
That's it, man. We're a little distracted, right? I mean, our culture is overstimulated and under-disciplined. We're just a distracted culture. And so, there might be somebody that's like, I don't have enough time, but you start tracking how much you're on your phone and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even recognize
the screen
3
time
hours a day.
That thing,
the screen time
it'll
on the
tell
phone.
you, man.
It'll tell you. The eye in the sky won't lie, right? As former athletes, man, the film would never lie. You just couldn't get around it. And I think sometimes our lack of awareness, right, is what's really creating our demise in this separation of us actually walking out our priorities. And I would say this, that I see a distinct connection between our values, like what we value in life.
Yeah.
Like you just shared the example of Daniel and how he valued honoring God.
That's right.
And that value, you see that played out in his priority then. And so you see that connection between the two. And I think oftentimes as leaders right now, we all have values or, the way in which we want to live our lives. But if we look at our priorities, not our desired priorities, but our actual priorities, we would see a disconnect in the two.
Yeah.
And, I guess as I share that, maybe what are some of your thoughts, regarding that?
I think talk is cheap, maybe is the first thought. Yeah. And in my own life, right, I can say that I value God. I value my wife, my children. And yet, at times, if I'm really honest, I value, relaxing and watching some NFL or, the more than caring for my wife's heart.
Man.
And that is very convicting, but it's genuine. It's honest. Wow. I can say that, I value, I don't know, you name a variety of other things, but then I look at my iCal or I look at my checkbook, and you can really see what you put your time, your investment, your energy, your best hours of the day, all that kind of stuff. And so, as you said, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. But again, I think we're all in process.
Yeah,
man, we're humans. So it's no shame, no blame. No. What it is I like the word you use. It's awareness. So first of all, we start with, okay, what are our true values? Okay, do they need to be adjusted? There's always opportunity to adjust and to admit, hey, I've been off a little bit. I've been chasing the dollar lately. I didn't even know it. And then my calendar proved it. Been chasing entertainment. I've been chasing, pleasure or whatever it is. I don't know, whatever gets in our way. We're humans. Yeah. But just readdressing that, coming back to proper priorities, and then being very practical to put those in place, Mike. And we talk about putting rocks in your schedule, putting boulders and non-negotiables that will help you really start aligning your values with your priorities.
Yeah, you can either schedule your life or people will schedule it for you.
Your life, just life in general will schedule it. I mean, it's crazy.
It happens.
We get bombarded with ads and opportunities and possibilities, but there's a lot of possibilities, but not governed by proper priorities, we'll get out of whack real quick.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm reminded of a season of life for me, literally a year ago. Have the great privilege of coaching football in the fall at a high school here in Omaha. Been an amazing opportunity to give back, serving on staff here at Love Church and started a venture with some guys, a creative company, Reveal Media. Yeah. And I found myself being overloaded.
Yep.
And I got to this place. I mean, it was really awareness. Physically, I just wasn't resting well. I could see the track that my marriage was going down in my relationship with my children. And I got to this place where I really just put that before God and said, speak to me, right? And I think that is such a crucial step in this process, is being able to take a good thing, right, and put it before God and say, in this season, is this how you want me to spend my time?
Oh, that's so good,
and Reveal Media was a great thing.
That's right.
By the way, they're the ones that are helping us do this thing right now.
Phenomenal people.
Amazing company, amazing venture. But in this particular season, God was asking me to lay it down.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be willing to say, okay, God, I'll take this good thing and lay it down so that I can continue to live up to the priorities that you have for my life.
And that, you just nailed it. One of the biggest challenges for us as leaders of growing organizations. the more you grow, the more opportunities will be there. Your influence grows, your invites grow, all of that. Your family grows, like the needs grow, the problems grow, everything starts growing. And so the tension is, and you're a good leader. I mean, people that are listening, they're good leaders. They care. They want to do what's right. They want to say yes. They don't want to turn people down. But you have to be able to, just what you said, put it before the Lord. In this season, what are you inviting me into? One of the greatest questions that we constantly challenge our leaders to. In this season, what are you inviting me into? And if we can genuinely pray that and then have the self-control to actually listen and obey, even if it doesn't line up with what you'd rather do, I think is key. And so there's humility with that. There is selflessness that goes into proper priorities. And it's a process. And you hit it. Every season is going to be a little bit different as well.
That's so true. And, I was just thinking about this. We can have our eyes on people like never before. In other words, in our culture, the internet has given us access to people, organizations all over the world. And I think more than ever, people struggle with, fear of missing out or fear of, becoming what they're called to be. And I think if we allow that to drive us, it could be very dangerous. Because you brought up the Chick-fil-A example, and I want to go back there. But that's an organization that is choosing to trust. They're saying, hey, we're willing to give our employees a break on this seventh day, and we're trusting that the business is going to do what it needs to do to succeed. There's an element of trust in that, right? Because it'd be real easy for them in moments where maybe sales aren't going as good, or, that was something that worked 50 years ago. Should we change that now? Should we open up on Sundays? How important and how vital is trusting this process, trusting what the invitation is for the season that you're in?
Just gigantic. And that's, I talk about the Bible as literally the playbook of life.
Yeah.
And it's trusting that God's word is literally the playbook of life, and it has the priorities played out right in front of us. I mean, what if you're a married person, love your wife as Christ loved the church, right? That's a huge priority. Wives, submit to your husband as unto the Lord, respect your husband. Gigantic priorities, right? Remember the verse I gave to you when you were praying about what to do next in pro football.
No idea.
And I literally emailed to you, hey, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, right? Matthew 6:33. And then everything else will be added to you. That's Priority number one, seek God, right?
Yeah.
Ask him, and then if you're married, right? Love your wife, respect your husband, and then love your children. So the priorities are in there, man. And so often we as humans go, I'm just going to make up my own playbook.
It's so true, man.
Well, the world tell me to this, and I'm kind of insecure, so I gotta really work hard to make sure I make it, and I'm someone, and so we're led by these different voices. But man, if we go to the playbook of life and we say, man, no, you know what? In everything, seek first the kingdom of God. He's my number one at all times. And oh, by the way, he's all in every single priority. Totally. By the way, it's not like, all right, I saw it, God, and we'll see you later. I'm going to ditch you. And no, he's definitely number one throughout the entire life. But we in my office right now, Mike, I have these rocks, and God, like I literally have a rock that says God on it, and then it says spouse, then it says children, then it says work, then it says hobbies, and the whole idea is, if you put the rocks in first and then you sprinkle some of the other pebbles, some of the other opportunities out there, you can fill a vase huge. But if you put all the other scrolling and opportunities and wasted time, you put all the little pebbles in, and then you try to put these other big rocks into like a vase or whatever it is, it's not going to fit. And so it's key to be able to have these priorities in order so we can have a successful life and really live God's best for us.
I think that's a practical takeaway right there. I mean, just the visual of that.
Yeah.
When you're sitting down at your desk and you look at that, it's like a reminder, oh boy, am I actually walking this out? Or, Craig had shared how the 4 bucket example, he had 4 different buckets that represented priorities that he wanted to see lived out in his life.
That's right.
And every time he would actually live that out, he'd drop, like a penny
That
or a
was
rock
huge.
in that. That was
Yeah.
huge. And so I just think about what's the visual reminder? Where is it at in our journal? How are we reflecting? Because awareness is crucial in whether or not we're actually walking these priorities out.
Yeah.
And I just think, man, this is it's such a huge topic. But how have you fought to keep the main things the main things? How have you fought for that?
It's really, we're over a decade into this, the organization we lead. And every season's been a little bit different, Mike. When we first started the church, I had 3 jobs. Our twin boys, I think, were 6 at the time. My wife was doing some homeschooling and taking care of the house, and it was wild, dude. But it was a season, So, yes, was I seeking the Lord, staying connected in the Word? Yes, was I loving my wife? But the fact was, my time was limited with my family for a season. Once things started, moving the right direction, getting some traction, I had to put these boulders in my schedule, and I really did. And to this day, Monday night, I turn off my phone, and I don't turn it on till Wednesday morning. That's an example of a boulder. It's a non-negotiable. In this season, our boy, I can't even believe it. And that's why the priorities are so key. Before you know it, snap your fingers, our kids are, graduating from high school. This blows my mind. And, on Monday night, family dinner. And we went to this one of our favorite Thai places. Our phones were in the car. I said, guys, our phones are in the car. So, date night, there's rhythms. Another example, for years, all of our birthdays are in March. And so we would just take off and we go on a family vacation. Every Thanksgiving, we get on the road for a week and we go up into the mountains. These were non-negotiables that we developed. They're rocks in our schedule. And, we have some people at the church, I can't believe you're taking off a week or you're doing this and that. And I'm like, hey, man, and here was the reality. You guys can go get another pastor anytime. My family has one dad, one father.
That's so real.
My wife has one husband, and I want to be in this for the long haul. And no offense to you. I love you guys, but you know what, man? I got to make sure that personally I stay healthy, my family stays healthy. And oh, by the way, that's going to be actually most healthy for you, the people that we're leading in the church.
That's so good, man.
So regular rhythms and boulders, I think, have been gigantic for us.
Yeah, by the grace of God, man, he's allowed you to not be perfect,
That's for sure.
but to have things in place that keep you marching forward with keeping those priorities in place. And I love how he just touched on rhythms. And next month, we're actually going to dive into rhythms a little bit more because priorities really do connect to our rhythms. What do the rhythms look like? He talked about seasons versus lifestyle, and we want to dive into that with you guys. We thank you so much for tuning into this month. We're just so honored to be doing this, man.
It's cool. We're all in process. It's cool to be able to have you with us.
Yeah, we're so glad you guys are with us. Hey, please leave a review, subscribe to the podcast if you would, and if you were impacted by what we talked about today, anybody that would benefit from what we talked about today, please go ahead and share that with them. Again, we just want to continue to see people impacted. We want to give away what's been given to us. We want to invite people into this journey, and we're so glad to be on it with you guys. Can't wait to see you next month.